when the hood steamed. So did old assumptions. Sarah Thompson gripped the steering wheel of her aging Honda Civic as steam hissed from under the hood. She was stranded on the shoulder of I-75 just outside Atlanta, the brutal Georgia heat pressing in like a second crisis. At 28, Sarah was a single mom, juggling double shifts as a nurse at Grady Hospital, trying to stay afloat financially while raising her 6-year-old son, Tommy, in the back seat. Tommy sat sweating in his Little League uniform, tears streaking his face. "Mummy, why's the car broken?" he asked, his voice small and heartbroken. "I don't know, baby," Sarah replied gently, masking her worry, "but we'll figure it out." She didn't have a plan. The mechanic had warned her last month. The radiator was failing. But when you're living paycheck to paycheck, an $800 repair is an impossible luxury. Now, stuck in sweltering heat with number cell signal, cars sped by at 70 miles per hour, creating gusts that rocked their broken-down car. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. "You can't trust everyone, Sarah. Some people take advantage of women in vulnerable situations." Just then, a pickup truck slowed and pulled over ahead of them. Her heart pounded as a tall black man in work clothes stepped out and walked toward them. "Ma'am, looks like you're having some trouble," he said, stopping a respectful distance from her window. "I'm Marcus. I'm a mechanic. Mind if I take a look?" Sarah froze, hand hovering over the door lock. Every warning she'd ever heard about strangers surged forward, especially as a woman alone with a child. But Marcus didn't push. "I get it, you're cautious," he said, stepping back. "Let me show you my business card. You can call the shop and verify. I've got a little boy about your son's age. I know how scary this situation must be." Something in his tone, calm, empathetic, real, broke through her fear. She cracked the window and took the card. "Marcus Johnson, certified master mechanic. Johnson's Auto Repair." From the back seat, Tommy piped up, "Can you really fix our car?" Marcus smiled warmly. "I'll try my best, buddy. What's your name, Tommy? I was supposed to be in my baseball championship, but now I'm gonna miss it." "Well, let's see if we can change that," Marcus said, cautiously. Sarah stepped out of the car and let him examine the engine. His movements were precise, confident, and professional. Nothing shady or rushed. And he kept checking in with her and Tommy, making sure they understood what was happening. "Your radiator hose burst," he explained. "You lost all your coolant. It's actually a simple fix if I can grab the part." Sarah braced herself. "How much is it going to cost?" "The hose is about $20, Marcus said. "I can run to the auto parts store and have you back on the road in half an hour." Sarah blinked. $20 she could handle, but the fact that this man had stopped without judgment, without expectations, shook something loose inside her. Her upbringing in the safe, affluent suburbs of Alpharetta had planted seeds she was only now beginning to question. Her family wasn't overtly racist. They'd never said the ugly words, but the tone, the warnings, the concern about certain neighborhoods and certain kinds of people, it was all there. Polished prejudice, dressed up as protection. Their Sunday dinners didn't come with overt slurs but with quiet nods, disapproving glances, and stories told with just enough coded language to pass as polite conversation. And yet here was a man, someone she would once cross the street to avoid treating her and her son with more care than most of her neighbors ever had, who could be trusted, and who posed a potential threat. That question had been drilled into Sarah Thompson's subconscious since childhood, always framed as loving concern, never overt bigotry. "Sarah, honey, I just worry about you working at Grady Hospital," her mother Linda Thompson often said, while arranging fresh garden flowers. "That part of town attracts so many transient people. You never know what kind of situations you might encounter." Her father, Robert Thompson, a successful insurance executive, echoed those sentiments with polished practicality. "Single mothers have to be extra cautious, sweetheart. There are people who target women like you. Trust your instincts. Don't take unnecessary risks." They never used words like dangerous or criminal out loud. But Sarah had learned how to read between the lines. These comments weren't delivered with malice. They came with hugs, with casserole dishes, with "we're just worried about you." But over the years, they built a mental framework, one where people were categorized quickly and unconsciously, based on appearance, neighborhood, and vibes. Nursing school had started to challenge that. Her ethics training taught her to treat every person as a human being first. Her work at Grady put her alongside Black doctors, Latino nurses, immigrant patients, and hardworking families from every background. She saw intelligence, compassion, and resilience every day. But old habits die hard. Even her best friend Jessica, a nurse with a similar suburban background, reinforced those same fears during their coffee meets. "You're too trusting, Sarah," Jessica warned. "Remember that nurse in Birmingham who stopped to help someone and got robbed? You've got to think about Tommy's safety first." It made sense on the surface, but lately, Sarah had started to feel something deeper beneath her quiet shame. Her internal dialogue was a constant war between what she'd been taught and what she was now seeing with her own eyes. She had been told her instincts were about safety, but what if they were really about fear, disguised as common sense? Tommy, thankfully, hadn't absorbed those biases yet. At 6 years old, he judged people by how they treated him, not by their skin tone. Once, after a black security guard helped them find their way in the hospital's parking garage, Tommy asked, "Mommy, why did you look scared when that man talked to us?" "I'm not scared, honey," Sarah had replied. "He's just being careful." But the question stayed with her. Maybe it wasn't him being cautious. Maybe it was her. That internal tension was boiling over now, as she watched Marcus work under her car's hood. Everything about him, the way he kept a respectful distance, how he explained the problem clearly, how he smiled kindly at Tommy, went against what her conditioned brain warned her to expect. Yet that only made her more suspicious, because she'd been taught that real threats don't look like threats at first. Dangerous people pretend to be helpful. Her mother had repeated that one like gospel. Sarah found herself watching Marcus with hypervigilance, cataloging every move for signs of deception. Was he stalling to justify a bigger bill? Would he suddenly say the part was more expensive than expected? Was this all a setup? The mental gymnastics were exhausting and disturbing. She was realizing, painfully, that she was unable to accept kindness from a black man without interrogating it, without questioning his motives, without expecting an angle, and yet here he was, quietly working, unfazed by her unease. 20 minutes later, Marcus returned from the auto parts store with a new radiator hose and coolant. He worked with practiced ease, wiping his hands clean between steps, explaining each move clearly. "Looks like whoever put in your last hose didn't tighten the clamps right," he said as he tightened the new one. "That's why it failed. I'll make sure this one's fully secured so it doesn't happen again." His tone was calm, professional, like any skilled mechanic talking to any customer. Sarah was so used to bracing for the upsell she could hardly believe he wasn't inflating the problem. She surprised herself by blurting out, "How do I know you're not just telling me that to make more money?" Marcus paused. He didn't bristle. He didn't lash out. He simply looked up at her, eyes steady, and said, "Ma'am, I get it. But you can see the old clamp right here. It's barely tight. Call any shop, and they'll tell you the same." He gently handed her the loose clamp. Something shifted. For the first time, Sarah realized that her suspicion wasn't about Marcus. It was about the story she'd been told all her life and how it no longer matched reality. This wasn't a man taking advantage of a woman. This was a man helping a mother, a mechanic doing his job, a human being showing up when someone needed him. Mitum, one title, Send Crow, Ga, Uska, one prompt banal, Written, Isa prompt, ESA. Prompt yes, Psy movies K. Thumbnail, BNWA. Sako yes, me, S. B characters, including Hun, as per the title. Aggressive, look, ho, like, etc. And Coke, further additions, Cood, Psy, KR, Dina, as you see best. OK. USK Uper, 3D text, B, ho like professional thumbnails. Thumbnail ESA ho K viewers, video KO, click key, beggar, AG, na, J, and retain Rai. Give me prompt and written. Only give me prompt, no other text. Give me in 800 characters. Also thumbnail K-side pi, the B show ho K, the incident viral hogia, high on social media etc. And USK screenshot, Dick Ow, Mr. Johnson. Sarah said impulsively, her voice catching him mid-task. Would you like to get coffee? Sometime. I'd like to offer a proper thank you for helping us that day. Marcus paused, clearly reading her expression. He seemed to be weighing whether the offer came from genuine interest or some sense of social obligation. That's very kind of you, Miss Thompson, but you don't owe me anything. It's not about owing, Sarah replied. I just think I'd like to get to know the kind of person who fixes strangers' cars and refuses to take payment. Marcus smiled, the corners of his mouth lifting, with quiet amusement. Well, when you put it like that, I'd be honored to have coffee with you. They exchanged phone numbers, and as Sarah walked away, she realized she'd just taken a step far beyond every social rulebook she'd been raised with. She was reaching out to a black man, a mechanic from a different part of town, different background, different life experience. Yet his steady kindness had shown her something more authentic than most of the people she'd called friends. For the first time in her adult life, Sarah was choosing connection over caution, curiosity over assumption, and the hope of understanding over the safety of her familiar, insular world. The next morning, Sarah sat at her kitchen table in Alpharetta, absently staring at Marcus's business card. Her coffee sat untouched. What had felt like a warm, human connection in the hospital parking garage now felt like a decision, one that required justification. She could already hear the voices. Her mother would be horrified. Her friends would be concerned. Her ex-husband might even try to twist this into a legal argument about parenting judgment. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of cereal crunching. Mommy, are we going to see the nice man who fixed our car? Tommy asked, spoon in hand. Maybe, sweetheart. We might have coffee with him sometime. Good. I want to show him my championship trophy. His innocent enthusiasm sliced clean through her anxiety. To Tommy, this was simple. A good man had helped them, and now they were seeing him again. It wasn't complicated unless you made it that way. Just then her phone rang. Jessica. Sarah stared at the screen. She knew what was coming. Hey, she answered. Sarah, Jessica said immediately. Amy told me she saw you talking to some guy in the hospital garage. Please tell me you're not getting involved with someone you don't even know. Jessica's voice was filled with concern. But Sarah heard something else beneath the surface. Fear disguised as wisdom. He's the mechanic who helped me when the car broke down, Sarah said calmly. We're just going to get coffee. Sweetie, you need to be careful. I know things have been hard since the divorce, but dating someone from that world, it could complicate things with Tommy's father. Think about how it might look during custody. That world. The phrase landed with a thud. Jessica was articulating fears Sarah hadn't fully acknowledged, but had clearly absorbed. It wasn't just about Marcus. It was about everything he represented outside their bubble. It's just coffee, Jessica. I'm not planning a wedding. Famous last words. Jessica sighed. I love you, but you're too trusting. This guy could be anyone. You don't know his past, his intentions. What if he targets single mothers? After hanging up, Sarah sat still for a long time, uneasy but unresolved. Then she opened her laptop. She searched for Marcus Johnson. His shop had outstanding reviews. His website included community discounts for low-income families. A local newspaper had profiled him for organizing free oil changes for single moms during the holidays. His Facebook page was filled with pictures of Little League games, neighborhood cookouts, and charity car clinics. Everything she found about him confirmed what she already suspected. Marcus wasn't hiding anything. He was simply a good man who helped people. That afternoon, as Tommy splashed around at the neighborhood pool, Sarah sat with Karen Mitchell, a fellow single mom, and one of the few people in the subdivision she genuinely trusted. "Can I ask you something personal?" Sarah said. Karen put down her magazine. "Of course. Have you ever dated outside your usual type?" Karen raised an eyebrow. "Define usual type." "Different background, different neighborhood, different race." Karen didn't flinch. She leaned in, her tone sincere. "This is about the mechanic who helped you, isn't it?" Sarah nodded. Karen exhaled. "Let me tell you something I learned the hard way. The men in our little suburban bubble aren't necessarily better people just because they wear button-downs and live behind HOA gates. My ex had all the right connections, still cheated with his assistant." Sarah blinked, not expecting the blunt honesty. Character matters more than zip code. "Sarah, if this man has shown you kindness, integrity, that's rare. Don't throw that away because it doesn't come in the usual packaging." "But what about Tommy? What about what people will say?" Karen shrugged. "Tommy needs to see you living by your values. And if people have a problem with you choosing a good man, that says more about them than it does about you." That evening, Sarah tucked Tommy into bed. He yawned, blinking sleepily. "Mommy, why are you nervous about having coffee with Marcus?" "I'm not nervous," she said gently. "Grown-ups just think about things differently than kids do." Tommy frowned. "That's silly. If someone's nice to you, you should be nice back. That's what you taught me." His words landed like truth often does, simple, clear, and impossible to ignore. "Deep things about the world you grew up in," Marcus said, his tone steady but kind. "And maybe about yourself, too." Sarah nodded, grateful for his directness. "I think I am. I was taught to see the world a certain way, safe versus unsafe, our kind versus others. But that hasn't made me happier or wiser, just limited." "That's not unusual," Marcus replied. "We all inherit stories. The important part is deciding which ones still deserve to be told." Their conversation lingered as they stepped out into the warm Atlanta evening. The air smelled of rain and exhaust and fried food from the diner's kitchen, rich, textured, real. Sarah felt as if she had stepped out of a flat photograph and into full color. As Marcus walked her to her car, Sarah found herself smiling without needing a reason. She wasn't performing politeness, wasn't trying to impress or decode someone else's expectations. She was just being with someone who saw her as a whole person. "Thank you for meeting me," she said. Marcus looked at her for a long, quiet moment. "Thank you for showing up." When Sarah drove home that evening, the suburbs felt quieter, more distant, less like home, and more like a backdrop. She realized she wasn't trying to rebel or escape. She was simply expanding. Later, as she tucked Tommy into bed again, he asked, "Did you have coffee with the nice man?" "I did." "Was he still nice?" Sarah laughed. "Even nicer than I remembered." Tommy nodded sagely. "I knew it. Can he come to my soccer game?" She hesitated, but only for a second. "Maybe. We'll see." As she turned off the light and stepped out of her son's room, Sarah realized something had shifted, not in Marcus, but in her. The questions that once loomed large, "What will people think? What does this mean?" now seemed smaller than the deeper truth she was beginning to trust. A good heart recognizes another, and that should matter more than anything else. "Assumptions you were raised with," Marcus had said, and it was true. Sarah was questioning all of them. His words hadn't come with judgment, only insight. but they described her internal journey with startling accuracy. She was no longer just reacting to a kind gesture. She was reevaluating the framework of beliefs she had grown up with. Her world was proving to be more layered, more intertwined than she'd ever allowed herself to see. As they walked toward their cars, Marcus paused beside his pickup. "Sarah, I just want to be clear. I don't have any agenda here beyond friendship. I'm not trying to make a statement or prove anything. I'm just a single dad who enjoys meeting good people." His sincerity was steadying, and yet Sarah realized that what she wanted was slowly evolving into something more. "What if I am looking for more than friendship?" she asked, surprising even herself. Marcus studied her with thoughtful seriousness. "Then we'd need to talk about what that means for both of us, and especially for our kids." "I'd like to have that conversation," she said, her voice quiet but sure. "So would I," he replied, and the smile they shared then held more weight than words. The phone rang early the next morning, to 6 a.m. on a Saturday. Sarah's stomach dropped as soon as she saw the caller ID. Her mother, Sarah. Her mother's voice crackled with tightly contained panic. "We need to talk. Your father and I are driving down from Alpharetta right now." Sarah didn't need to ask why. Someone had seen her with Marcus. "Mom, what's going on?" "Don't play innocent," her mother snapped. "Mrs. Patterson saw you yesterday, in East Atlanta, having coffee with a black man. She said you looked comfortable together." The suburban surveillance machine had moved swiftly. Sarah sighed, knowing nothing escaped the eyes of the neighborhood grapevine. "I was having coffee with a friend, Mom, that's all." "A friend?" "Sarah, you have Tommy to think about. What happens when Richard finds out you're dating a black man? He could use that against you in court." Her mother's concern came wrapped in maternal warmth, but lined with coded prejudice. It wasn't about Marcus. It was about crossing a line one drawn decades ago, quietly maintained by fear, disguised as wisdom. An hour later, her parents arrived. Their faces were tight with tension, disappointment etched into every line. They weren't hateful, but their entire worldview was built around keeping life safe, clean, appropriate. "Sweetheart," her father began with forced calm, "we're worried that you're making emotional decisions without considering the long-term consequences." "What practical consequences, Dad?" "Social compatibility, cultural differences, financial disparity. Relationships like this face real obstacles. That kind of instability could affect Tommy's well-being." Her mother pulled out a folder, like a defense attorney, packed with printed statistics, articles on interracial dating challenges, and studies about custody battles. It was clear they'd come prepared to present a case against Marcus. "Mom, you actually printed out crime statistics and custody research to keep me from having coffee with someone. We're just trying to give you a clear-eyed look at the risks," her mother replied. For hours, the conversation dragged on calculated.com, and emotionally exhausting. They never used slurs, never raised their voices, but every word reinforced the same core message. Keep to your own, don't rock the boat. Protect your reputation, and above all, protect your child. And then came the line that hit hardest. "Have you considered," her mother said softly, "that he may be drawn to you for what you represent: security, upward mobility. Some men, from certain backgrounds, target women like you." Sarah's face flushed. "Mom, Marcus owns his own business. He's a single father. He's been nothing but kind and honest with me." "Sweetheart," her mom said with pitying finality, "predators often seem kind at first." The next day brought reinforcements. Yosa arrived with 3 other friends from nursing school, under the guise of a casual girls' brunch. But Sarah quickly realized it was an intervention. "We love you," Jessica began gently, "and that's why we have to say something. You're an educated, successful, beautiful woman," Amy added. "You don't have to settle for someone who's from a completely different world." "What if I'm not settling?" Sarah asked quietly. What if I'm choosing? Choosing what? Asked Nicole, her tone skeptical. The complications of interracial dating, the stares you'll get, the whispers, the way Tommy might get treated at school when people find out. Their voices were calm, rational, persuasive. They weren't attacking Marcus, they were appealing to Sarah's sense of protection, her motherhood. They painted a grim picture of alienation, of social rejection, of emotional trauma. Not for her, but for Tommy. We're not saying he's a bad person, Jessica concluded. We're saying he might be the right guy in the wrong world. That evening, Sarah sat in her living room, emotionally drained, watching Tommy play video games, his small laugh cutting through the silence. She felt the weight of it, all the judgment, the warnings, the subtle but relentless pressure to retreat. None of these people, her family, her friends, were trying to hurt her. They truly believed they were saving her from catastrophe. But something had changed. She'd seen Marcus, really seen him, not as a symbol or a stereotype, but as a man, a good man, a father, a helper, a person whose integrity didn't fit into the tiny boxes her world tried to cram him into. And now, she couldn't unsee that truth. Sarah had experienced Marcus's kindness too directly to ignore it, felt a connection too genuine to abandon for the comfort of others' expectations. The choice before her was becoming clearer by the day. She could retreat to the familiar prejudices of her suburban world, or risk everything to pursue a relationship built on mutual respect and sincere affection, a relationship that defied social conventions. The decision would shape not just her romantic future, but the kind of person she wanted to be when faced with the choice between love and acceptance, authenticity and approval, growth and comfort. On a quiet Tuesday afternoon, Sarah asked Marcus to meet her at Piedmont Park. She chose the open, peaceful space because it allowed for honesty, a conversation too big for a coffee shop or casual exchange. While Tommy played nearby on the playground, the two walked along the water's edge. Marcus, Sarah began, her voice unsteady. I need to tell you about how my family and friends have reacted to us spending time together, Marcus offered, a gentle, knowing smile. Let me guess, they're worried about your safety, about Tommy, and whether I might have some hidden agenda. His words, so accurate, revealed that this wasn't his first time navigating white families' unspoken fears and assumptions. How did you know? Sarah asked, her throat tight. Because it's always the same conversation, Marcus replied, softly, disguised as love, framed as concern, but rooted in fear. Fear of me, of what I represent, of what I might disrupt in their world. His tone held resignation, not bitterness. Tears gathered in Sarah's eyes. I'm so sorry. I didn't expect them to react this way, not to coffee. It's not just coffee anymore, is it? Marcus said, stopping by a bench overlooking the lake. Sarah sat down, her heart pounding. No, it's not. I think I'm falling in love with you, and it's scaring everyone I know, including me. She swallowed. Especially me, because loving you means choosing between the life I've always known and the person I'm becoming. Marcus reached for her hand, his touch steady and reassuring. Sarah, I'm not asking you to choose me over your family or your community. I'm not here to test your tolerance or your principles. Then what are you asking? She whispered. I'm asking you to choose what's real for your heart, not what's comfortable for other people's prejudices. They sat quietly, watching as children of every background played together, unbothered by the boundaries adults spent so much energy enforcing. Can I tell you what my son asked me the other night? Marcus said. Sarah nodded. Jamal asked if I was going to marry the nice lady with the broken car. When I asked how he'd feel about that, he said, she's nice to you, Daddy. She needs help sometimes, like we do. That sounds like family to me. His words made Sarah's chest tighten. How simply children saw the world, valuing kindness and care over labels and barriers. Tommy asked me something like that too, Sarah said. He wanted to know if you were going to be his new daddy. When I asked how he'd feel about that, he said, I like him. He fixes things, and he's nice to you. Marcus chuckled softly. Smart kids. Smarter than their parents, apparently. Turning toward her, his expression turned serious. Sarah, I need you to understand what being with me might mean. It means dealing with stares and whispered comments. It means having hard conversations with our kids about why the world treats some families differently. It means choosing to define our love by our values, not by anyone else's approval. Fear and exhilaration warred inside her, but so did clarity. It also means, Marcus added, that I'll love and protect you and Tommy with everything I have. That we'll build a family based on respect, honesty, and love, not on social convenience. I've been thinking about all of this since my family's little intervention, Sarah admitted. They want me to choose safety over growth, comfort over truth, their approval over my heart. And what does your heart tell you? Marcus asked. Sarah's eyes found Tommy's, playing joyfully, surrounded by children of all colors and backgrounds, blissfully unaware of the artificial walls adults built around love. My heart tells me that you're the best man I've ever met, that you've shown me kindness without expecting anything, integrity in every moment, and a way of living that puts family and community before ego. She hesitated, then added, but I'm scared. Scared of losing my family's support. Scared Tommy will face prejudice because of my choices. Scared I won't be strong enough. Marcus held her gaze. Fear is natural when you're choosing love over conformity. But let me ask you, what do you want to teach Tommy? That love should be limited by other people's ignorance? Or that real, authentic connection is worth fighting for? The question settled deep inside her, like a stone in still water, rippling through every fear and hesitation. I want him to know that good people are worth loving, she said, her voice steady now. That it doesn't matter what someone looks like or where they're from, only who they are. Marcus smiled, his face softening. Then you already know what your heart wants. Something fundamental shifted in Sarah, a deeper understanding of courage, of love, of what it meant to live authentically. I choose you, Marcus, she said. I choose us. I want to build something real, even if it means disappointing people I love. His eyes shone. Are you sure? Because once we make this choice, there's no pretending this is just friendship anymore. I'm sure, she answered, surprising herself with how certain she felt. I love you, Marcus Johnson, and I want to see where this love can take us. I love you too, Sarah Thompson. And I promise you, choosing love over fear is always the right decision, even if it's the harder one. As they called Tommy in from the playground, hand in hand, both understood their world was about to change. But for the first time, it would be on their own terms. Relentless, calculated to strike at every one of Sarah's deepest fears. She felt her pulse pounding in her ears, her hands trembling as she gripped the report. You don't get to do this, Richard, she said quietly, though her voice shook. You don't get to tear apart my life and decide who I'm allowed to love, or who's safe for Tommy, based on your prejudice. This isn't about race, Richard shot back, his expression hard. It's about protecting my son from a dangerous man in an unstable environment. I have every right to challenge custody if I think his safety's at risk. But Sarah could see it clearly now. This wasn't about safety. It wasn't about stability. It was about control, about punishment, about punishing her for stepping outside the boundaries of what he, and people like him, deemed acceptable. You hired someone to follow me, Sarah said, her voice gaining strength, to spy on me, to take pictures of my private life. You crossed a line, Richard, and you know it, he scoffed. A court won't see it that way. You brought this on yourself. Sarah took a deep breath, steadying the storm inside her. I know about Marcus's past. He told me. You know what else? I know who he is now. A man who takes care of his son. A man who's shown my son kindness and taught him respect. A man who treats me with more dignity than you ever did. Richard's expression darkened, and for the first time, she saw uncertainty flicker behind his rage. You can do whatever you think you need to, Richard, she continued, standing taller. But I won't let you weaponize my happiness or my son's well-being, because you're too small to accept the life I'm choosing. You don't get to define my moral fitness. Not anymore. There was a long, tense silence between them. I'll see you in court, Richard muttered at last, gathering his papers and stalking toward the door. Good, Sarah said, her voice firm and clear now, because for the first time in years, I'm not afraid of you. As the door slammed shut behind him, Sarah leaned against the wall, her legs weak beneath her. The fear lingered, but so did a growing sense of clarity. She called Marcus. Hey. His voice came through the phone, warm and steady. You okay? Richard showed up, she said. He's threatening to take Tommy. He found out about your arrest from years ago. There was a pause. I figured it might happen sooner or later, Marcus said quietly. I'm scared, she admitted, tears filling her eyes. But I'm not backing down. Neither am I, he told her. Whatever happens, I'm here. For you. For Tommy. We'll fight this together. And in that moment, Sarah understood something even deeper than before. Choosing love over fear wasn't a one-time decision. It was a daily act of courage. A commitment to live by truth rather than intimidation. She glanced at the photographs still scattered on her table, once meant to shame her. Now proof of a life she refused to apologize for. I love you, she said. I love you too, Marcus replied. We'll get through this. And Sarah knew they would. The accusations were sophisticated and devastating. Designed to exploit every deep-seated fear, Sarah's family had warned her about the dangerous, unpredictable black man. Even though the charges against Marcus had been dropped, the mere existence of an arrest record would feed into a justice system shaped by prejudice and unspoken assumptions. I want you to end this relationship immediately, Richard demanded, his voice cold and measured, or I'll file for an emergency custody modification first thing Monday morning. No judge is going to award primary custody to a mother who chooses to expose her child to criminal influences. After Richard left, Sarah sat in stunned silence, staring at the photographs in the police report now weaponized against her. Her hands trembled as she realized how naive she'd been about the forces still aligned against interracial love, how blind she'd been to the lengths people would go to protect the illusion of their moral superiority. She called Marcus immediately, her voice cracking as she explained what had happened. When Marcus arrived an hour later, he looked older than she'd ever seen him, wearier, carrying the weight of battles fought long before they met. Sarah, I need to tell you the truth about that arrest, Marcus began quietly. Can I? Come in. They sat across from each other in the living room. Marcus took a steadying breath. I was 23, working at a gas station in East Atlanta, he said. A customer came in, started calling me every name you can imagine because I asked him to pay before pumping. When he tried to leave without paying, I stepped outside to get his plate number. He came back with 2 of his friends and jumped me in the parking lot. I fought back. When the police arrived, all they saw was a black man fighting 3 white men. Guess who they arrested? He paused before continuing. Security footage eventually cleared me. Charges dropped. The other men were charged with assault and theft. But the arrest record, that never goes away. Sarah felt sick. Not because of Marcus's past, but because of the injustice that had followed him ever since. Because of how easily Richard could twist it into a weapon. He's going to use this to take Tommy from me, she whispered, tears filling her eyes. Marcus reached for her hand. Maybe we should take a step back, he said, pained. I never wanted my past to hurt you or your son. But something fierce lit inside Sarah. Then, no. Her voice was unsteady, but sure. That's what Richard is counting on, for me to be too afraid to fight. To sacrifice my happiness for his approval. To let him control my life through fear. Sarah, think about what you're risking. Tommy's the most important thing in your life. Exactly, she said, standing, her decision sharp and absolute. And what am I teaching Tommy if I let his father dictate my choices through racist threats? What am I teaching him about standing up for what's right when it's hard? Marcus looked at her, the pain in his eyes softening into admiration. Once we go public with this, there's no going back to your old life. I don't want my old life, Sarah said, surprising even herself with the certainty in her voice. I want the life we're building, and I want Tommy to see his mother brave enough to defend it. For the first time, Sarah was about to find out who she truly was when tested, when forced to choose between love and conformity, courage and fear, growth and safety. She spent the weekend consulting family law attorneys, researching custody laws, and learning how easily racial prejudice could be disguised beneath legal jargon about the best interests of the child. While courts couldn't legally discriminate against interracial couples, unconscious bias and skilled attorneys could still twist perceptions. Monday morning, she called Richard. I'm not ending my relationship with Marcus, she said without hesitation. If you want to fight for custody, do it. You're making a mistake that will cost you your son. No, Richard. I'm making a choice that will teach my son to value character over color, courage over conformity. The legal battle was ugly in public. Richard's lawyer painted Sarah as reckless and unstable, framing Marcus as a dangerous criminal unfit to be around children. But Richard hadn't anticipated the allies Sarah would find. Dr. Patricia Williams, Tommy's pediatrician, spoke about Marcus's positive influence. Mrs. Rodriguez from the hospital testified to Marcus's kindness and community service. Even Tommy's teacher described his growing confidence and happiness since Marcus became part of his life. The turning point came when 6-year-old Tommy was interviewed by the court-appointed guardian ad litem. Marcus is nice to my mommy, Tommy told her plainly. He teaches me about cars. He helps people when they're sad. Daddy yells at mommy and makes her cry. I want to live with people who are nice to each other. During the final hearing, Sarah took the stand. It was the most important speech of her life, Your Honor. My ex-husband wants you to believe that loving a good man disqualifies me as a mother because that man is black. He wants you to see Marcus Johnson's arrest record and ignore the reality behind it. But I ask you to consider what Marcus has actually done. He's shown kindness to a stranger and her child. He's volunteered his time to help others. He treats my son with patience and care. And he's teaching him that real men are gentle, responsible, and community-minded. Her voice steadied, growing stronger. If I allow prejudice and fear to dictate my choices, what lesson does that teach my son? If I surrender to stereotypes, how can I raise a boy who judges people by their actions, not their appearance? I'm not just fighting for custody. I'm fighting for my son's right to grow up in a world where love is defined by character, not color, where relationships are built on respect, not social approval. The courtroom sat in heavy silence. 3 weeks later, the judge delivered his ruling. Sarah retained primary custody. Richard's visitation rights remained unchanged. But the judge's written opinion made national headlines and would be cited in future cases. The court finds no evidence that Miss Thompson's relationship with Mr. Johnson poses any threat to the minor child's well-being. It wasn't just a legal victory. It was a moral one. And as Sarah walked out of the courthouse hand in hand with Marcus and Tommy, she knew they had not just defended their family, they had redefined it. The judge's final statement made it cleared. The evidence suggests that Mr. Johnson's presence in the child's life has been uniformly positive, providing stable male mentorship and modeling healthy relationship dynamics. The court cannot and will not restrict a parent's right to pursue relationships based solely on racial considerations or unfounded assumptions about criminal records that reflect victimization rather than perpetration. It was a complete legal victory. But as Sarah walked out of the courthouse, hand in hand with Marcus and Tommy, she knew winning the battle was only the beginning of building the life they wanted. That evening, they celebrated in the simplest, most perfect way, with takeout pizza and Tommy's favorite movies. Laughter filled the room, warmth replacing the anxiety that had haunted them for weeks. As the credits rolled, Marcus took Sarah's hand. His expression was tender, his voice low. "Sarah Thompson, you are the bravest person I've ever known. You fought for us when it would have been easier to walk away. You chose love over fear when everything was at stake." Sarah smiled through misty eyes. "I didn't choose bravery, Marcus. I chose what was right, and what was right was you, us, this family we're building." Marcus's hands trembled slightly as he pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. He opened it to reveal a simple, beautiful ring. "I know we've done everything backwards, faster than anyone would advise, but I also know I want to spend my life proving myself worthy of the courage you've shown." Tommy, who'd been while devouring his pizza, jumped up with a grin. "Are you asking Mommy to marry you?" "I am, buddy." "How do you feel about that?" "Yes," Tommy shouted, leaping to hug them both. "Can I call you Daddy, Marcus?" Marcus's eyes glistened. "If your mommy says yes, you can call me whatever makes you happy." Sarah looked at the ring, at Marcus's hopeful face, and at her son's uncontainable joy. Her heart swelled with a happiness she'd never imagined possible. "Yes," she said. "Yes to all of it. Yes to marriage. Yes to family. Yes to choosing love over everything else." As Marcus slipped the ring onto her finger, Sarah realized she wasn't just accepting a proposal. She was accepting a new life built on courage, integrity, and love unbound by convention. Word of their custody battle, and unlikely romance, had spread through Atlanta's social circles. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution's lifestyle editor reached out, offering Sarah a platform to tell her story. After some hesitation, she agreed, not for attention, but because she knew silence protected prejudice. Her op-ed, "Why I Choose Love Over Fear: A Single Mother's Journey Across Racial Lines," was published the following Sunday. It was unflinchingly honest. 6 months ago, I was a suburban single mother who'd never questioned the invisible boundaries that govern my social world, Sarah wrote. When a black mechanic stopped to help me on the highway, I was suspicious of his motives, fearful of his intentions, and grateful only because desperation outweighed prejudice. She recounted her family's reactions, her own unspoken fears, and the custody battle that forced her to choose between social approval and love. "My ex-husband's attorney argued that loving a black man made me unfit to be a mother. But here's what they couldn't argue against. Marcus Johnson has shown my son what healthy masculinity looks like. He's demonstrated that real men help others without expecting recognition. That strength means protecting rather than dominating, and that character matters more than skin color." The response was immediate and polarizing. Sarah's inbox flooded with messages ranging from heartfelt congratulations to vicious condemnation. Her mother called within hours, her voice a mixture of hurt and disappointment. "Sarah, why did you have to make this so public? Why couldn't you just live your life quietly, without making a statement about it?" "Because, Mom," Sarah answered quietly, "staying quiet lets prejudice thrive. If people like me don't speak up about love transcending racial boundaries, who will?" The article was shared thousands of times, igniting conversations across dinner tables, book clubs, churches, and online forums. Invitations followed to speak at universities, churches, and community centers about interracial relationships and the unseen social pressures that try to divide people. Some of the most surprising responses came in private. White women messaged Sarah, sharing their own experiences, dating across racial lines, and the isolation it brought. Black readers thanked her for acknowledging the complexities their community faced when white partners didn't fully understand racial realities. Marcus supported her public advocacy, but confessed his concern. "I'm proud of you," he said, after a tense radio interview, "but I don't want Tommy and Jamal becoming symbols when they deserve to just be kids." Balancing advocacy with privacy became an ongoing negotiation. Yet Sarah discovered their story wasn't just personal anymore. It had become a thread in a larger conversation about love, race, class, and courage in modern America. The most meaningful feedback came from young people who saw in them proof that love could defy the boundaries their parents accepted as immutable. College students invited them to speak on building relationships across difference. High school students shared stories of their own interracial relationships, gaining acceptance, in part because of examples like Sarah and Marcus. "We're not trying to be pioneers," Sarah told a packed auditorium at Emory University. "We're just trying to build a healthy family based on shared values, not shared backgrounds. But if our relationship gives someone else the courage to choose love over fear, I'll be grateful for that impact." The speaking engagements and media attention brought unexpected opportunities. Sarah was asked to join the board of a nonprofit focused on promoting racial reconciliation through personal relationships. Marcus was profiled in a magazine feature about Black entrepreneurs revitalizing their communities. But the most important validation came from their children. Tommy thrived in his blended family, surrounded by love, honesty, and an understanding of the world's complexities and how to stand firm against them. And in the quiet moments watching movies, building forts, fixing bikes, Sarah, Marcus, Tommy, and Jamal weren't pioneers, or symbols, or spokespeople. They were simply a family. Friendships across racial lines bloomed naturally and unforced in their blended family. Jamal, initially shy about gaining a new stepmother and stepbrother, slowly opened up under Sarah's nurturing care and Tommy's boundless enthusiasm. One evening, as Sarah tucked Tommy into bed, he looked up at her thoughtfully. "Mommy, I'm glad you wrote that story about us." "Why, sweetheart?" she asked. "Because now other kids know that families can look different and still be good families." In that moment, Sarah realized her public stand had accomplished something she hadn't intended. It had normalized interracial families for a generation of children who might grow up seeing love as colorblind, or better yet, color-conscious. But rooted in respect, the article continued generating responses months after publication. But Sarah no longer sought external validation for her choices. She'd found her voice as an advocate for authentic relationships and used her platform to encourage others to examine their assumptions about love, family, and community. Most importantly, she discovered that publicly defending her relationship had strengthened it. The scrutiny forced her and Marcus to articulate their values and commitments, deepening their bond and clarifying their shared future. "How's this story hitting you so far?" Sarah would sometimes ask Marcus as a joke, a nod to the countless comments their story had drawn online. Their relationship had become an unexpected symbol, but at its core, it was still just them, two people navigating life, love, and family together. A year after their roadside meeting, Sarah stood on their backyard deck, watching Marcus teach Tommy and Jamal how to change a tire. Laughter filled the air as the boys competed to see who could loosen the lug nuts fastest. That morning, the woman Sarah saw in the mirror barely resembled the one who had clutched her steering wheel in fear on Interstate 75. Her designer suburban wardrobe had given way to clothes chosen for comfort and practicality. Her social calendar shifted from country club luncheons to community barbecues and school functions that reflected their blended family's diverse connections. But the most significant change was in her eyes, now holding a depth of understanding that privilege and isolation had never provided. Marcus appeared beside her, slipping his arm around her waist, with the easy intimacy of a year marked by challenges and triumphs. "Regrets?" he asked, their traditional check-in question. What had started as genuine concern had evolved into a light-hearted ritual. Sarah considered it carefully, as she always did. "I regret that it took me 28 years to understand that character. Matters more than color," she said. "I regret the opportunities for connection I missed because of inherited fears. I regret that Tommy had to witness adults fighting about whether love should be limited by race. But regrets about choosing us never, not for 1 second." She turned in his arms to face him fully. "Never," she repeated. Their engagement had been followed by a deliberate year of relationship, building couples counseling to navigate their different upbringings, intentional integration of their families, and difficult conversations about race, privilege, and community. The wedding was set for next month, a celebration meant to unite Marcus's East Atlanta community with the members of Sarah's suburban world who had chosen love over prejudice. "Marcus," Sarah said, taking his hands in hers, "falling in love with you changed everything. You didn't just win my heart, you opened my eyes to the humanity I was taught to fear or dismiss. You gave me hope that people can change, that privilege can choose justice, and that love can transcend the boundaries society tries to impose." They stood together, watching their sons work side by side, blissfully unaware of the racial categories adults once clung to as if they mattered. Tommy's confidence had soared under Marcus's patient mentorship, while Jamal blossomed with Sarah's nurturing support. "Do you think they'll face challenges because of us?" Sarah asked, a question that surfaced from time to time, despite their children's visible happiness. Marcus was quiet for a moment, then answered honestly, "Probably. But they'll also have tools to handle those challenges that a lot of kids don't get. They're learning that families come in all configurations, that love is defined by commitment, not color, and that standing up for what's right sometimes means standing against what's comfortable." Their conversation was interrupted by Tommy's excited shout. "Mom, Dad, look, I changed the whole tire by myself." The casual, unforced use of Dad for Marcus brought tears to Sarah's eyes. Tommy had started using the title naturally, without prompting or pressure. Marcus had earned it through quiet consistency and unconditional love. That evening, as they sat on the porch while the boys played in the yard, Sarah reflected on the improbable journey that had brought them to this peaceful moment. "You know what I've learned?" she said softly, watching fireflies flicker against the gathering dusk. "What's that?" Marcus asked. "That love isn't about finding someone who fits into your world. It's about being willing to build a new world together, one bigger and better than either of you could have created alone." Marcus squeezed her hand, his thumb tracing the engagement ring that had come to symbolize not just their commitment to each other, but their shared defiance of every assumption about who deserved love and respect. "I learned," Marcus replied, "that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing love, despite it. And you, Sarah Thompson, are the most courageously loving person I've ever met." As the boys ran inside to wash up for dinner, Sarah and Marcus remained on the porch, their hands intertwined, watching the neighborhood settle into its evening rhythms. Their love story had started with a broken-down car and a stranger's kindness, but it had grown into something much larger, a testament to the possibility of transformation, the power of choosing connection over separation, and the truth that meaningful relationships are built on shared values and mutual respect, not surface similarities. In 6 weeks, they would marry in a ceremony celebrating not just their union, but their community's capacity for growth and love that transcended artificial boundaries. "Ready to go make dinner for our boys?" Sarah asked. using the plural possessive that had become natural and beautiful. "I've been ready for this life since the day I found you stranded on that highway," Marcus said, "and I'm grateful every day you found the courage to let me love you." As they walked inside together, Sarah felt a profound, quiet satisfaction. A life being lived authentically, guided by love rather than fear, by character rather than convention, and by the understanding that the most beautiful families are those built by choice, not by expectation. Behind them, a suburban neighborhood settled into evening, one family at a time, redefining home as a place where love lived freely, regardless of the packaging it came in.